In this video, we're going to take a bag of original iPhone parts and see if we can come up with at least one working device. What's up, guys? Today we're going to take a bag of old iPhone 2G parts that I had laying around and hopefully have at least one fully functional device. Pulling it apart, we have two different iPhone logic boards, both with batteries, but I'm unsure the condition in both of them. Looking at the back cases of both of them, it looks like one of them is an iPhone 2G 4GB, and then the other one is an 8GB model. There's two different frames for both phones, but one of them has a lot of bent metal on the side, so it looks like I'm only going to be able to put one together. In this bag, there was actually what looked like some iPod touch screens as well, which was kind of weird. Here's a bag of screws and some lenses, as well as a couple home buttons. And there we have it. Here's all the parts that we're going to deal with, and hopefully we can come up with at least something working. But now I have to decide which of the two iPhone logic boards I'm actually going to try to get working. When I go ahead and plug this one in, then it boots up just for a couple seconds and then immediately dies. And inspecting it a little closer, it looks like the antenna port is actually broken up. So because of that, I'm going to go ahead and use the other. Before I do too much else, I'm going to go ahead and clean them up with some 50% isopropyl alcohol and some Q-tips and some cotton swabs, just to get everything nice and neat and clean and ready for the new parts that I'm going to put on it. Okay, now that everything's all cleaned up, we can go ahead and remove the old logic board and the LCD from the good housing. This was pretty simple. There was just 3 clips holding it down on each side, but then I had to be careful because the LCD cables actually run through the frame, and so I had to push them through first before I could actually pull it out. Next, I went ahead and removed the excess residue just from the old battery as well as from the old LCD screen on the front. Just wanted to make it nice and clean and ready for the new battery and parts by getting rid of the old stuff. I did this using a flat-headed X-Acto blade as well as some alcohol and on the cotton swab. The flathead blade I found really is good on flat surfaces like this aluminum sheet right here because it's able to scrape deep and get all that off really easily. And then I used some alcohol to help dissolve it a little bit more and make it nice and clean. On the front side there was quite a bit of excess residue as well as some black tape as well. I didn't feel bad about taking any of this off just because I'm going to be replacing it as well as putting this brand new screen on. So I just wanted to make sure that there was nothing in the way when I go to install it. Okay, now that that's all clean, I can go ahead and put some new adhesive on. I'm just using some 3M tape that I got from a local craft store. I know that you can buy the templates already cut out for the exact shape, but I didn't want to worry about shipping and waiting for that to come, so I just used what I had. I found that the sharp tip of an X-Acto blade was perfect to cut it out around the edges, as well as cut out the earpiece and the other ambient light sensors and anything else that I needed to cut holes for in the adhesive. So it was kind of difficult to find a screen for it, but eventually I was able to find one on eBay that shipped from China. It took about a month or so for it to ship, but I guess that's what I get for paying for stamped shipping. As you can see, you have to be extra careful when you install it to first put the ribbon cables through the frame of the phone. There's little slats on both sides, both for the digitizer and the LCD. And once you slide them through, you have to be careful and adjust it just right so that you can still fold the little logic board right there, as you can see, up against the frame and still be able to position the glass in the right place. When I first put this together, I actually forgot to put the home button in, so I quickly put a new little piece of adhesive on the home button and was able to slide it in the right place and get it working perfectly. I'm actually really excited about this screen. I'm hoping that there's no problems with it, but I was able to get the home button just working perfectly, and everything seems to be working perfectly, so now I can go ahead and move to the logic board. Putting in this style of logic board is actually really tricky because all of the cables that connect to it are actually mounted onto the back side of the logic board. I had to use a flat-headed screwdriver to help me to push them in from the back side of it. I eventually discovered that the easiest way to put the dock ribbon cable into the logic board is to actually fold the battery to make it lay on top of the logic board. Then I was able to use a flathead screwdriver and pry out the little connector and then slide it in. I then put a little foam piece that was in the other frame into this one to help secure the battery into the right place. Okay, with that installed, I can now go ahead and connect up the antenna cables. You just lay on top and then use your finger to kind of just press them in. Next we have the camera. I just went ahead and used a little bit of alcohol to clean up the lens and then just set it right where I needed to go and pressed it in. I really wanted to make sure that everything was working properly, and so I went ahead and connected the back housing, which has the power button and volume buttons as well as the vibrator, and sure enough it did turn on, which was really exciting. I'm hoping this works out. I'm kind of crossing my fingers at this point, just really hoping that it'll turn on. And sure enough it turned on. This is really exciting. So I went ahead and opened it up, and it looks like it still has a lot of information on it, lots of apps and other things. I just did a quick test of the camera, and it looks like this camera actually doesn't work, but later on I went ahead and replaced that with the other camera in the bag of parts, and it ended up working just fine. But I wasn't able to do a whole lot until the battery died, but I'm pretty sure that it was just low on battery, and so I went ahead and just disconnected it for now, and then later I can connect it up and get it charged to turn on for the final time. I went ahead and removed the camera and put the other one that I had from the bag. With everything in the right place, I can now go ahead and start securing everything down with the screws. Now in the bag I had just one single package full of all the screws, which I assume was from both phones. And so it's kind of tricky to figure out which screw went where, but with some patience I was able to get that all figured out, and what seemed to be all the correct screws in the right place. And with those screws in, then I can go ahead and now put on the side bezel with 3 screws on each of the sides. At this point, just to make sure everything was working properly, I went ahead and connected it to a charger just to make sure that it turned on, and sure enough it turned on just fine, and so I'm now able to test the other camera just to make sure that was working as well. Sure enough, it's working just fine, so now I can go ahead and just finish up putting in the battery by putting a new piece of adhesive, just some double-sided tape underneath it just to hold it down securely so it doesn't wobble around when I go ahead and put the frame on. Next is 2 screws on either side of the dock, and then I'm able to put the last 2 bezel screws on each of the top corners. Then I put on the outer case, and to put this on I kind of just had to put it in the right place and then kind of do some gentle force around each of the bezel sides, just up and down each side to snap it into place, and then put the final screw at the bottom. Now I can put in the SIM tray, and then finally I can put the black plastic piece on the bottom underneath the aluminum case. I had 2 options here because I had 2 different black pieces, and so I kind of just picked the best one that looked good and then used some gentle force just to put it in. And there you have it, a beautiful looking iPhone 2G with a brand new screen. It looks so good. Unfortunately, the back doesn't look as good. It's got a lot of scuffs and damages and scratches, but I can live with that for now. Just as long as it's a working iPhone 2G that I'm able to play around with and use in the meantime. Just a quick check of the serial number. It turns out this phone is actually one of the original iPhones, which means that I can actually at some point downgrade it back to iOS 1. So I will do that in the future, but for now it's just running a fresh version of iOS 3.1.3. So with the rest of the parts in the bag, I was actually able to assemble them into a mostly complete iPhone, but unfortunately it does not turn on when I go ahead and plug it in. So I'll have to do some further testing in a later video. As part of my collection, I actually have another iPhone 2G that is actually also in perfect working condition. There are some minor scuffs, but the main damage is actually on the LCD. As you can tell, there's some dead pixels right there on that line, so it kind of stinks, but maybe in the future I can put a new screen on this one as well. But for the time being, then it's just sitting until I can downgrade it to iOS 1. If any of you guys actually know how to do this, I would love some help, so if you could leave some comments in the description, that'd be awesome. Okay, here we have at least 2 working original iPhone 2Gs from 2007. So we took a bag of parts and we were able to get it into a working device, which I'm super excited about. So thanks for watching. If this is something you like, go ahead and like, share, comment, whatever you want, and we'll see you in the next video.